And tonight I'm also making another promise to protect Americans from government tyranny. As your president, I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency. You know about that? Ooh. I didn't know you know so much. I'm very, well, New Hampshire, very smart people. Very current. You know what they're doing. Such a currency would give a federal government, our federal government, the absolute control over your money. They could take your money, you wouldn't even know it was gone. This would be a dangerous threat to freedom, and I will stop it from coming to America.
You heard the man. President Trump just declared war on the creation of a central bank digital currency, and he's not the only one. We're going to see the growing revolt against the idea of CBDCs and why it does indeed look as if the tyrannical schemes of our ruling class are about to be consigned to the ash heap of history. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, as many of you know, we have had a bit of misfortune visit our channel. We have been completely and totally demonetized. That's right. Big tech has stepped in and totally demonetized our channel. But they overlooked one major factor in all of this. You have stepped into the gap. Thousands of you, literally thousands of you, have come to our rescue, and you've stuck it to the big tech overlords by joining our Insiders Club. We all know that demonetization and cancellation efforts, they're all efforts by the big tech overlords to separate us from one another, to make us feel like we're alone, and like we're in a digital solitary confinement, to demoralize us, discourage us, dishearten us. And I'm here to tell you, you are not alone. And if you click on that link below right now, you'll know that you will never be alone. I'm calling on all of you to join the thousands of patriots that have already stuck it to big tech by joining our Insiders Club. For just $5 a month, you and I will have the security of knowing that our relationship will never be severed. This is how we bypass the big tech overlords. Through our Insiders Club, our relationship with one another is safe and secure. Click on that link below right now, join the club, and join the rising army of thousands who are taking our nation back each and every week. And here's the key: together. As you just heard, President Trump, speaking in New Hampshire, has just announced that he, as president, will never allow the use of a central bank digital currency, a CBDC, in the United States, precisely because it would give the government absolute control over your money. Now, what's so interesting here is that it does appear that Trump's opposition to CBDCs has been influenced by none other than Vivek Ramaswamy, who, of course, has now just endorsed President Trump. And before Trump made that announcement, here's what Vivek said about what he and Trump discussed.
You were up just now in New Hampshire. The official endorsement, we're seeing it right there up on the screen. What did the former president tell you when you guys were backstage?
Look, we had a great conversation. I actually prefer to talk about policy rather than politics, Jesse. And so we talked about a number of issues backstage, which I've actually championed in this race that I do think would be beneficial to the America First movement for President Trump to take on. And I think he was very amenable to many of them. Opposition to a central bank digital currency, talking about certain pardons that I think we need on day one. Julian Assange included on that list. And so I'm not a politician, I'm a businessman, but I'm also somebody who cares about the details of policy and commitments. And so we had some great conversations backstage about that.
So perhaps we're seeing a little of Vivek's influence in Trump's policies, at least when it comes to CBDCs. That's a very, very good thing indeed. Now, if you don't know, central bank digital currencies are simply the digitalization of money. Okay, they're similar to cryptocurrencies, but they're instead issued by the central bank, and they're tied to the country's fiat currency, which for us, of course, is the dollar. But the key here is that with CBDCs, all of your purchasing would be done digitally, and thus those in power would have instant access to every cent of your spending data, as well as income. Now, the reason why Trump and many others are steadfastly opposed to CBDCs is because of another set of letters, and that, of course, is ESG. Now, we've been talking a lot about ESG this week with the demons in Davos meeting this week for the World Economic Forum. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance criteria, and it refers to literal scores that corporations get in relation to those three areas so that investors can show they are investing in companies that are all in on green energy and equity initiatives and DEI, right? Another set of letters, diversity, equity, and inclusion policies imposed on their employees. And many have noticed, rightly so, that the ESG scores are eerily similar to China's social credit system, which deliberately seeks to control and influence human behavior so as to supposedly maximize safety and sustainability. Now, you might be asking, what the hell is going on here? Don't these people have anything else better to do? Why are they doing this? And what we have to understand here is that we are living in an age of technocracy. Technocracy grew out of the 19th century Industrial Revolution, and it basically enthroned a class of so-called experts who supposedly alone had the competency to run a highly technical, industrialized world. But what we have to understand is that technocrats, by their nature, control. Because that's what technology does. Technology controls. It controls your electricity, it controls your heat, it controls your access to information, it controls your travel, it controls your health, it controls your refrigerator. Yeah, you name it. Technology controls. So what do you think happens to a society that ends up being ruled by technocrats, by a class of so-called experts who supposedly alone have the competence to run this complex system we're all living in? Well, they exercise their supposed competence by controlling the mechanisms of control. Technocrats control the technology that by definition controls. That's what technocrats do. That's their job description. And the social credit system is a technocratic project that seeks to control human behavior so as to maximize safety and sustainability, particularly ecological sustainability. And this is precisely where CBDCs come in. The World Economic Forum, which is meeting this week, as we all know, they are currently collaborating on plans to institute digital currencies around the world so as to be able to not just track, but ultimately control the purchasing patterns of consumers. Now, the good news is that Trump's declaration of war on CBDCs already has the Republican House behind him. Back in September, the House Financial Services Committee passed a bill that officially bans the Federal Reserve from creating a central bank digital currency. The bill's in response to what the Biden administration has been doing over the last few months. They've been busy rapidly developing a CBDC. It started with a sweeping executive order from bumbling Biden, and now central banks are even hiring for their development. Well, if this congressional bill has anything to say about it, those days are officially over. The legislation would block the Fed from issuing a CBDC directly to individuals, ensuring the Fed could not mobilize itself into a retail bank able to collect personal financial data on Americans. It also blocks the Fed from indirectly issuing a CBDC to individuals through any kind of intermediary, and it would prevent the central bank as well from using any CBDC to implement monetary policy. And again, the key here is that Republicans are not alone in this. Even Democrats and former Democrats are coming out against CBDCs for the very same reasons that Trump is. Back in April, Bobby Kennedy Jr., he came out explicitly opposed to CBDCs, saying, quote, CBDCs grease the slippery slope to financial slavery and political tyranny. While cash transactions are anonymous, a CBDC will allow the government to surveil all our private financial affairs. The central bank will have the power to enforce dollar limits on our transactions, restricting where we can send money, where you can spend it, and when money expires. A CBDC tied to digital ID and social credit score will allow the government to freeze your assets or limit your spending to approved vendors if you fail to comply with arbitrary diktats, i.e. vaccine mandates. So this is very interesting because we're seeing, as it were, bipartisan opposition to CBDCs, and everyone, regardless of their political affiliation, is seeing the same thing. They're seeing CBDCs as the currency apparatus, literally the lifeblood of a totalitarian social credit system. So the good news is that there's a major backlash against these totalitarian efforts. And by God's grace, that backlash will consign the pipe dreams of these globalist technocrats to the ash heap of history.